Thank you all for coming this morning. My name is Rob Russell, and I am the coroner in Kane County. We are here today to bring closure to an incident that originated in 1978. This case started many years before it was made known to us and is an example of great teamwork. With me today are some of those team members. Next to me, I have Deputy Coroner Gabriella Allison. She is the lead investigator in this cold case. Next to Gabby is Michael Vogan. He is from Othram Incorporated in the Woodlands, Texas. Chief Mazza from the Batavia Police Department. Next to Chief Mazza is Kane County Chair Corrine Parag. And next to Corrine is Batavia Mayor Jeff Shelke. Also in attendance today, we have Kane County Board Member Leslie Juby over here. On November 12, 1978, a citizen, James Skinner of Batavia, was renovating his residence at 239 East Wilson in Batavia. Upon knocking down a wall of the residence, Mr. Skinner discovered what appeared to be a human skull between the studs of the wall. Mr. Skinner immediately called the Batavia Police Department and an investigation was started. At that time, DNA and genealogical records were not as advanced as they are today, so options were limited. Batavia Police did an incredibly thorough investigation with what they had available at that time. Several outlets were contacted to include national labs, museums, as well as colleges and universities. The most that could be obtained at that time was from a university professor who surmised that the skull was from a young woman around age 20. It was also determined that the skull was from someone prior to 1900. Batavia Police searched records for missing persons and no additional information was revealed. After the exhaustive search and investigation, the case grew cold. On March 10th, 2021, employees of the Batavia Depot Museum were cleaning and making room at the museum when a box containing a skull was found. Not knowing where the skull originated, museum employees called the Batavia Police to report the finding. Batavia PD performed a search of their records and found the original 1978 report. No additional evidence was recovered from the search. The Batavia Police Department then decided to appropriately remand the skull to the Kane County Coroner's Office for continuation of the investigation. The next day, we continued the investigation, and because the case was minimally over 40 years old, I decided that the cold case team was best suited to investigate this incident. Deputy Gabriella Allison was assigned as the lead investigator. I started the cold case investigative team in July of 2015 to review old cases in response to citizens who had legitimate questions and concerns in relation to previous equivocal death rulings. Upon reviewing existing evidence and chasing down leads for 2 years, we became aware of a company called Othram Laboratories in Texas. This company performed a relatively new investigative technique called forensic investigative genetic genealogy, or we'll call it FIG, F-I-G-G for short. This is the same procedure that was used to catch the Golden State Killer in 2018. By the time we had heard of them, Othram had already solved over 100 cases across the country using this process. Our hope was that if FIG could solve these cases, then maybe a profile could be established for ours. Although our case was much older, we placed our hope in Othram's process. Othram graciously offered to look at the skull to determine if they could obtain any DNA from the skull, even though it was so old. After several weeks, Othram informed us that they were able to obtain some usable DNA that they could test, and if they were able to obtain a profile, it could be run through their database where members of a family with similar ID could be discovered. Othram said that if we would like to do this procedure, the funding required could be obtained through a crowdfunding site as a means of obtaining the required fees needed. I felt that the public would be interested in helping in the solution, so the crowdfunding option appealed to me. So in December of 2023, a press release was sent out about the unknown identity of the 1978 found skull with an appeal to the public for their help. With the help of the media, many of you who are here today, and the generous individual citizens who answered that call, we were quickly able to gain the funds necessary to perform the ancestral match with the DNA from the skull. Within 2 weeks of me officially authorizing the testing and genetic matching of the skull, Othram sent a report to us stating that the profiles had yielded a match. Not only did they have a match, but also a family tree with living relatives. Othram asked that we make contact with the assumed family lineage members for confirmation. We reached out to the second great-grandson of the person in question, and he submitted DNA to Othram to confirm a DNA family match. The grandson's DNA was confirmed as a match. We now know the skull found in the wall in Batavia as Esther Granger. Esther was born on October 26, 1848 in Indiana. In 1865, at 16 years old, she married Charles Granger, and after a few months became pregnant with their first child. In May of 1866, Esther gave birth to a baby girl, but lost her life soon after due to complications from childbirth. She was buried in Merrillville, Indiana, leaving behind a husband to care for their newborn daughter. In honor of his deceased wife, Charles named the baby girl Esther, the same name as her mother. So the question remains, if she died in 1866 in Indiana, how did she end up in a wall of a house in Batavia? We will never definitely know exactly, but with records and good reasoning, we've come to a common sense theory. We believe Esther was a victim of grave robbing. Grave robbing was quite common in that era, as it was quite profitable. The grave robbers made the equivalent of 3 to 4 months' earnings for an average person working 60 hours a week. One body every few months would give a grave robber a reasonable living, which is why it was so attractive at that time. It was also dangerous. Although it was illegal, many law enforcement agencies did not enforce it. Justice was relegated to vigilantes, many of whom were family members of the deceased. Many riots occurred in response to known grave robbing incidents across the country, and several perpetrators of the crime were murdered. One such riot occurred here in Kane County in the city of St. Charles in 1849 in an incident called Richard's Riot, which is a separate. Esther was not part of that riot. Again, there is no absolute answer to how Esther ended up in that wall or where the rest of her body is located, but being a victim of grave robbing does fit the bill. Since discovering Esther's identity, we were able to make contact with Esther's second great-grandson, Wayne Speiler. Wayne has been a great asset in helping us to determine Esther's identity. We are very honored to be able to serve his family by restoring a sense of decency to the life and death of his second great-grandmother. With the approval from her family, Esther Granger was laid to rest in Batavia at West Batavia Cemetery in a columbarium space donated very kindly by the city of Batavia. Wayne Speiler gave an appropriate eulogy to his grandmother he never physically knew, however, stated he felt he knew Esther because he had such a great relationship with his own mother and grandparents. He knew Esther through them. The positive identification and probable theory of how Esther's remains were found in a house in Batavia was surmised through an intense investigative process. We are detectives sworn to uphold and investigate the truth behind those who pass on from this world. Although the entire office and our partners work together to conclude this investigation, I would like to specifically thank the following people and agencies. Special thanks to Deputy Gabriella Allison. She's been the hands and feet of this investigation. She spent not only hours, weeks, and months, but years at performing this investigation. I'd like to special thanks to the Batavia Police Department. They've been step in step with us the entire process. We just really appreciate what they've done. The city of Batavia and Mayor Shelkey, thank you. Thank you for stepping up and giving Esther a final resting place. The Batavia Depot Museum, thank you. Thank you for doing the right thing and calling the police and helping us to solve this crime, this incident, that crime. Othram Laboratories, without them, we would be nowhere. Mr. Wayne Smiler, who I believe is online, is that correct?
Yes.
Yes, he could not make it. He lives in Portland, Oregon. So he was able to make it through Zoom, and we will have him on and have him available for questions for those that are interested. Thomas Doggett from Thomas Doggett Photography, he took the forensic photos of the skull. And 3D Resin Solutions of South Elgin. They 3D printed the replica of that skull, which is right here. This is not the actual skull. This is the 3D printed replica of the actual skull. Because again, the actual skull has been entombed. Forensic artist Natalie Murray, who was able to take the skull, you can get that other, yeah, that one, and actually give us a picture of what Esther may have looked like. Is that not cool or what? Very cool, very excellent. I'd also like to thank my chief, Lauren Carrera, my assistant chief, Rebecca Nielsen, and the entire staff. They've all been great. We've all done our part as a good team does. Lastly, but not least, I want to thank all the citizens who donated resources and said prayers for a successful outcome. Understand that your gifts were put to great use and your prayers were answered. Thank you. I'd like to bring up Michael Vogan from Othram to explain some of the process, because I'm sure you have questions on it.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Michael Vogan. I'm the Director of Account Management with Othram. I'll give just a kind of a cliff notes of who we are. We built Othram. We're actually the first private laboratory in North America that was built exclusively to generate human ID from forensic evidence, be it unidentified human remains, like in this case, or even suspect DNA. We built a complete end-to-end forensic process completely in-house that looks at hundreds of thousands of markers of DNA. Using these markers of DNA, we build these high-performing profiles that can then be used to upload into databases and connect families. And that's what we did in this case. And so I want to thank all these folks for trusting us to assist, and we're happy with the outcome.
There are also some other people I'd like to thank. We have Allison Namila, is that right? Namela from the Batavia Depot Museum, and Katie Burgess from the Batavia Park District, Batavia Depot Museum. Craig Tinrella, he's the owner of 3D Resin Solutions, who printed this excellent representation of the actual skull. And of course, I can't leave out Maureen Kelly. She's the other half of my cold case team. We've got a few other cases we're working on, and we'll continue to work on those, but she's also...
All right, that is a news conference there with the Kane County, Illinois coroner. Again, they did identify this 17-year-old girl who they say was found dead a few decades ago inside of a home's wall as the owner was doing some renovations there. But they say they'll never be able to determine exactly how she ended up in that wall, but did mention the idea of grave robbers there. Again, we will bring you any updates as we get them on the case, but that is out of Kane County, Illinois, which is just outside of Chicago.